Phone gimbals are usually made for one thing: stabilizing your videos for a better overall quality, which is generally to make a curated video more cinematic. In the case of XbotGo, a company hailing from California, also formerly called Blink Focus, is focusing on a different aspect: sports, mainly recording soccer games with the help of AI. You can learn more about the interesting backstory of the company's founder, David Tan, on their website, but as far as the functions of the XbotGo, goes, you can still use it as a regular phone gimbal, but it's designed a bit differently than your typical phone gimbal. First, let's tour the gimbal itself. The XbotGo gimbal comes in two parts: the gimbal and this mini stand. Everything is made of plastic, but the gimbal has a bit of heft at 360 grams. The clamp where the phone will go is not as fancy as the new ones, where they magnetically attach. Here, you will do the fancy slip and lock. The good thing is that this folds in half and goes inside the travel pouch for better portability. Regarding the gimbal's weight limit, XbotGo did not mention it on their website or in the manual. Still, they explicitly listed the compatible devices, which include iPhone 11 and later models or Samsung S21 and later models. To be more specific, not all phones will work with XbotGo's AI tracking, since it'll require at least a Qualcomm Snapdragon 888 CPU or Apple A12 Bionic. But if you don't plan to use the AI features, you can use the gimbal with any phone like other gimbal. As for the controls, you have the zoom slider on the right, a joystick for controlling the pan, tilt, and roll, and two buttons for mode and power. An important thing to note is that panning is inverted, meaning that moving the camera to the left is moving the joystick to the right and vice versa. Unlike other gimbals, XbotGo uses slightly more technical terms such as HF, AF, and LF. HF locks tilt and roll, LF locks pan, tilt, and roll, and AF locks roll. FPV unlocks everything. Powering on the gimbal requires a long press, but changing the orientation between vertical and horizontal is just a press away. Putting the camera back in the center is a double press in the mode button, but changing mode is a press away. I wish the joystick acted as a way to change modes if a rotating function was a thing here, since you need to cycle through the rest of the modes if you want to return to a previous mode. There is a button in the back, acting as a shutter button by the way, but as I've mentioned, the XbotGo gimbal works just as well as a regular gimbal when used without the app. You only need to get used to a few things, like the inverted panning direction, choosing different modes, and changing orientation. However, it's worth noting it lacks a switch to selfie mode, and you can change any of the functions in the settings. Heck, even the calibration mode of the gimbal is manually done. Then again, this is a sports gimbal with AI tracking features. So, how does it perform? Well, it's okay. Due to the storm for the past 2 to 3 weeks, I didn't get to test the gimbal on a soccer field. However, I did get to record an indoor basketball game. After reviewing the footage, XbotGo gave me more than usable clips. As you can see, the AI tracking is responsive to player movements running full court. Even with more than 10 players on the screen, the gimbal focused on where the action was happening. This is best if you want to broadcast or live stream a game, since the app supports it. However, the video coverage could be better. While the gimbal follows the action 90% of the time, the way the gimbal pans is very sudden. In the settings, you can set the pan speed and the angle of coverage of a court or a field. I maxed out both to cover all the action as fast as possible. However, the panning is too sudden for fast-paced movements. Dialing the settings down can make the panning movements smoother, but the gimbal won't be able to keep up with the fast movements of the players. I like the gimbal's zoom-in feature when it focuses on the ball, not the players. However, I wish it zoomed in more for a more immersive experience. But as far as the AI tracking goes, the app focuses on tracking the player's movements more than the ball, but it's smart enough to keep the ball in the frame, at least for the most part. It can keep up when players do lob or long distance passes, which is worth pointing out. When setting up the gimbal, you will need a tripod. You can get this XbotGo Gimbal T1 tripod from the company. It's very light and thin but made of metal and feels sturdy. However, the setup process is not as easy as setting up a basic tripod. It also costs 4,000 pesos or around $70, so it's kinda expensive. I appreciate the T1 tripod's lightweight and portability, but setting the horizon is not as easy as with a regular tripod with lockable clips. Despite the flimsy looking feet, this tripod has enough balance to prevent the gimbal from moving. Once you have the tripod and gimbal set up, the app will give you guidelines before recording. You will need to be in the middle of the court, down where the middle line is. I recommend following the guide for better tracking. I did not notice that my horizon was off during my first recording, which affected the tracking features significantly. As you can see from the selection, not all sports are supported out of the box. Additionally, the functions of the buttons are intentionally disabled when recording through the app, but you can still control the joystick. By the way, I used my iPhone 13 Pro Max while recording the game. Now, for the price. The XbotGo AI Sports Gimbal starts at 12,000 pesos or around $212. After my testing, it feels expensive for what you're getting. I think it's the AI that made this gimbal expensive, but hey, if you can afford it and you want to buy this to record or broadcast your kids' games or whichever sport this gimbal supports, I won't stop you from buying this. I haven't seen anything like it, but I'm sure cheaper alternatives exist. The links are in the description box below if you're interested in XbotGo. But that's it for this one. Drop a sub or like if you feel like supporting the channel, and as always, until the next one, stay safe.